Hello everybody, welcome to my channel. My name is Alex. I'm trying to speak like a normal human being right now. It's early in the morning and I'm having my coffee and I'm performing the role of normal human at a desk. It's a hard role sometimes. Sometimes I sit down to do this and I'm just like, remember to be normal. Okay. Hi. I hope you are doing very well. I've been doing good and that everything is smooth sailing in your world. I'm really happy to be sitting here making a video. Speaking of video, what's going on here? Well, I got the coffee and this cup has the Eiffel Tower on it. I'll show you. Check that out. Nothing crazy, just a little culture. A little European culture going on today. So I've been driving through the southwest of the United States from California through New Mexico. Oh no, Arizona. And then New Mexico. And then Texas. And my girlfriend and I, we went to drop off my car. So we drove the car to drop it off and came back. Now that's not the interesting part. The interesting part is that there is something really... Wait, how do I say this? How do I frame this? I actually had to pause and start the clip over because my mic went haywire, so I fixed that. But it was a good opportunity to think about what I'm trying to say because I don't have a plan necessarily going into this. I'm just rambling. But the south of the United States, especially rural when you are passing long stretches between towns, there is something very complicated and saturated about it in a way that's hard to describe. The part that we passed through was, because it's the Southwest, is like a blend of Catholic. It's like pretty much mostly Catholic, and then you start having a gradient into Baptist. And so these little towns will be kind of sprinkled with churches. And then you get these little quaint Baptist churches that start coming up as you get to Texas. And the environment is kind of still because it's rural and small. And we passed through a lot of towns that are just completely dying. And I was trying to think of the word to use. And I kept thinking about languishing. And so I looked it up. I was like, what is that word? How is that word living in my brain? What does it mean? And it's right. It's true. I wrote it down, actually, in this notebook. Whoever suggested to me to get a commonplace notebook, and I had to look that up too. I said, what's that? Very helpful. Languishing, the state of mental weariness that erodes our self-esteem, motivation, and sense of meaning. I was like, can a whole town be languishing? I think so. An entire town can be languishing. Here's another word I got from a book. Apoptosis. Apoptosis is natural death brought about by the tiredness and exhaustion of matter. In Greek, this word means the dropping of petals. I got this from a fiction book. I don't know if this is a real word or what, but I liked it. Apoptosis and languishing. It is like a weariness. Like the whole town is tired. We went to a town called Vaughn, New Mexico, and I had to just like drive around through the neighborhood because I couldn't believe this place was real. It was so tiny and it was just falling apart and dead, and we looked it up, and I think at one point the Vaughn police force was one person. It might be 0 now, I don't know, but just tiny and neglected, and there's no money going into these places. They've lost their purpose, so they're languishing in the everyday, and you can kind of feel that energy. And I think to a lot of people it's beautiful, me included. It has a haunting beauty, so to speak, right? Like if we're gonna romanticize it. But the whole world is political now. At least that's how it feels. Everything feels political, and maybe it's always been that way. But you drive through these dying towns, really just nothing. And we saw a Confederate flag. That was in Texas, of course, right? Rural Texas. A ton of Trump signs and just conservative politics mixed with religion. And it's that sad story about the politics of these places, looking down on everybody else, like gay people and what have you, as villainous, right? When these towns are being eroded and destroyed by urban planning, city planning, that has redirected people over there. The absolute neglect of our railway system, which is also languishing. Talk about that. It's being completely eroded by drugs, right? Completely eroded by an influx of drugs and opioids. And it's wound around this very traditional religious values that are not narratively serving anybody in the political sense, although sometimes they're used for political purposes. And so when I drive through these little rural areas, it just makes no sense to me. There's like it's like a desperate cry for an answer or something. Now, it's funny because individual people in these places are delightful. I don't understand how culture works like this. Like, we met individual people who, like, units of the whole, who were so nice and friendly and really kind. And then there's something about the whole, when you get it all together, like the culture of it, is undeniable to experience, right? When you go into a place and it's like highly, highly religious, very insular, away from everyone. It's got this energy about it that's really strange, and you look different. People look at you like you're different. And you can kind of see everyone's values, which is pasted in these symbols. You've got the churches, and then the MAGA stuff, and you've got a Confederate flag. There's no denying that that's the culture that you're in, and that up against kind of the natural beauty of the South. It's this weird kind of electric feeling that is very unique about driving through and seeing the South, at least the Southwest. I've never been to the Deep South, but I can imagine it's got its own unique flavor of that, especially as you get into more Baptist, like fully Baptist territory. So you start seeing that in Texas, is really this like transition out of the Southwest into like the Bible South. So I'm gonna say too, and I think this is important. It's not just the kind of cultural imagination where I can go into a place like this and start spinning my fantasy about how the darkness darkness that is inside this natural rural beauty, that there's like a hidden darkness. That's a romantic thing to say, and I tend to speak hyperbolically, but there's like one piece of data that really hits it home for me, where I'm like, no, I'm right, I'm correct. And it's, my girlfriend and I made it through Texas, and we were in Killeen for a little bit by Fort Hood. It's not called Fort Hood anymore, it's Fort Cavazos or something like that. Let me tell you, okay, Killeen is the transition out of, you've been driving through the rural South, here we go, and you haven't yet made it to a big, bustling, urban city like Austin or Houston or Dallas. Killeen is this middleman that, to me, perfectly captures and like shines a light on what I'm talking about, because it's an army-based town, so it's highly, highly conservative, and it has the really dark, KKK past, that type of thing that's still around, and it just has this weird energy. It's highly corporate, though. It's like any chain in the U.S. you can visit there. They've got the Barnes and Noble, and they've got the Starbucks. They've also got we went to this more, it's not conservative, is it Black Rifle Coffee Company. I didn't know what it was. I went in there and I was like, whoa. We got this coffee, the beans, it's called Freedom Fuel. Freedom Fuel. I got fueled up on freedom that day, and I was like, whoa, okay, so this is a corporate culture war going on here, but that's really kind of it. It's an army base, and then it's pretty much just chains of everything you could possibly imagine. Bed Bath & Beyond, GameStop, Popeyes, all kinds of stuff, right? But it has a documented darkness to it. An absolute, you've got the culture war on the surface, but it's like a hatch. You grab the handle, you lift it up, and underneath is the data. And the data says that the real danger in this community, the real danger is not anybody else. It's coming from inside. That's where the call's coming from, inside the frickin' house. Because this article, I'll link it in there. But my girlfriend and I were like, what is up with this place? And we Googled it, and it was like, oh yeah. This place is plagued with the same problem that a lot of military bases are plagued with in the United States, which is a high, disproportionate number of unsolved or quote-unquote solved homicides, suicides, and all kinds of other a fun party list of crimes that are just occurring here every year. And I read this article a reporter wrote for Vanity Fair about the really high number of all those things that are going on at this army base. So she wrote that piece for Vanity Fair, and then she wrote another piece about her kind of behind the scenes, and I'll link both of those in the description. But they're a really chilling read. I recommend them. She talks about how pretty much there's been something like over 200 of these incidents, and pretty much she lists some of these cases where a body will have a bone missing out of it, and it's the bone, hyoid bone in the neck. That's where they usually check to see if somebody was strangled, and it's missing. They go to look at the body and it's missing. Are you kidding me? What is that about? But I won't go into wild detail, but essentially it kind of, to me, confirms what I felt to be true, that there's a kind of a posturing, a certain moral and virtue posturing that doesn't fit and kind of hides a pattern of like systematic criminality, essentially. And it's coming from domestically. There's this urge to like look outward at other people and blame people from the city and whatnot, but it's usually domestic. One example I can think of here in California is there's this rural town that we like to go to, and they have a Facebook page, which is always fun to look at the Facebook page on these towns. And there was some small crime, and people in the Facebook were blaming the leaf eaters, which is like vegetarians from LA. It's just such a weird narrative, like, to blame people. There was also a murder that happened in that small town. A murder. Somebody shot this. Wait, did she die? I don't remember. Somebody shot. I shouldn't be smiling, but somebody shot this older lady. And the first instinct, everyone blamed it on the people who come up to this rural town from the city. And they blamed it on people from the city and said, oh, these Democrats, these vegetarians, they're bringing their city crime up here. It was not. It was her family member. And they've lived in that small town their whole life. They've lived in that small town their whole life, and that's who shot her. It was like her granddaughter shot her. It was a family domestic dispute. But it's that impulse in these really small insular communities to blame this other thing which they don't understand, while really, again, you open that hatch and you look inside, and it's like a world of criminality that's been covered up, and it's been covered up by either religion or, in this case, the military. And the public, we like know about these things, but we're not really supposed to know about these things, and we don't. They still happen. You can't really, it's kind of above the law. A lot of the times it's above the law. In the case of Fort Hood, though, I think there's been some investigations and some efforts to try and like uncover these things that have been hidden from the public for a long time, and try and find some sense of justice. Although I think that, again, that's very hard because there's a culture of silence and not saying anything. So all this to say is that there's I think there's that human darkness can reside anywhere, and it does reside everywhere, alongside kindness and hospitality and all those other good things. But it's felt like very acutely in the rural South, because I think of the simplicity of the symbol that you're looking at. You're looking at the plains and the hills and the grass, the cute little churches. The political imagery really stands out against kind of a lack of other types of imagery, a lack of other types of art, a lack of institutions like libraries. Just in that kind of serenity are these like signposts of culture that you look at, and you can kind of, but you feel the reality of that kind of like that violence, and that dark history, and some of that kind of deep cultural resentment toward other people kind of really comes through. And I loved every minute of that road trip, but there were times my girlfriend and I would just be like, whoa, like we cannot stop in this town. Let's just keep going. I can't imagine. I've never driven through the deep south, but I want to. I really do. I want to go like up through the deep south to the Carolinas, and then up to the East Coast. I've never been there, and then drive back to California. But that's for another day. That is for another time. So I just wanted to like hop on here and talk about that, where it was this unexpected thing we encountered during our trip, and then when we got to Killeen, it really kind of came to a forefront with the conservative culture being really like pointed, and you feel a little, at least I felt a little on edge around all that conservative like militia imagery. I think it got kind of comical. In this coffee shop there was like a shirt with a chicken holding a AK-47. I don't know, it was kind of funny, but at the same time when you looked into it I was like, oh, okay, there's also a culture of murdering people when you disagree with them, or like hiding their body in a suburban neighborhood. I think there's stories of they go searching for one person and they'll find bodies of soldiers that are just like had paperwork for them that was like, what's the word where they just like dip out, they just check out of whatever. So they have paperwork that just says, oh, they went home. No, they didn't. Someone killed them in some type of weird dispute, and I don't know what is going on in there. But anyway, all this is like a narrative, it's a story, but it's one that has some data behind it, and I think a lot of like cultural knowledge behind it. Like, you know that you can get away with stuff in certain places when you're backed by like kind of small town cops and that type of thing. It's like, we get it, we know, it's in movies, like the stereotype is true, and I was surprised to feel it so heavily during that trip. So I want to talk about that. I am from a small Texas town called Taylor, right? But it wasn't like small like Vaughn, New Mexico. It was tiny. And Taylor was interesting. I think it didn't impart that feeling on me to the extreme like Killeen. But it had a little bit of it. But not like Killeen, that is for sure. Anyway, that's my ramble. That's my ramble for this video. Yeah. I'm reading this book. Where's my book? Oh, where'd she go? Oh, she's here. I gotta move the candle. Okay, I'm reading this book. I have to move. She's under the candle. Can I do it? Okay. And I'm kind of surprised at how it's lining up a little bit tonally with my experience. This is a book. Look at this thing. I've been tearing this book up. Look at this. This was a new book when I started, and now she's clinging on for dear life. But this was a book I talked about in another video. Drive your plow over the bones of the dead. Really good. I'm this much done with it. So I'm like 2/3 of the way done, but I'm surprised with how it lines up, like tonally, with what I'm trying to talk about. This of course is a work of fiction, but it is drawing on that similar sense of aura or vibe around a rural, isolated place that feels very active, that somehow still feels very active, feels politically active. Like, there's cops in here she tries to talk to and they won't do anything, and weird stuff starts happening, and there are bodies that start showing up. It's kind of like a whodunit, but in a way that's very slow, and still captures kind of the serenity and the beauty of where these things take place, and the kind of like non-existent bureaucracy. It's like bureaucracy is somehow involved in this death, kind of like how the military system complex is involved in the hundreds of deaths and missing cases in Fort Hood. But at the same time, that bureaucratic process obscures justice and slows everything down and even brings it to a halt. And the result is this kind of strange, helpless feeling where you feel very small in a rural environment already is making you feel small. It's a strange dynamic, and she really is capturing that in this book. And so I like reading that now, having just kind of had to exist in Killeen for a long time, and it was really, it's something else, I tell you. There's really no reason to ever be in Killeen unless you're there to see someone like I was, because there's nothing going on in that town other than this weird dynamic, other than like hidden crime and then boredom kind of around that that sinister, all the sinister facts are just in a bubble with a ton of boredom and nothing to do. It's weird. So anyway, that's the strange dynamic that I encountered. There's probably a million reasons why. There's probably so many more facets of that dynamic in that story that I'm not in touch with. Yeah. Anyway, that's it. Relaxing topics. Murder. Okay. I hope that you're doing super good. I don't know what the next video is gonna be. I kind of want to just hang out and chill, but we don't know. If I get an intrusive thought, I might have to just go with that, but I hope that you're doing really well. I really do. I hope that you're sleeping good and you're getting some rest. The summer is winding down. Can you believe it? I feel like Halloween is gonna be here before we know it, and I can't wait. I cannot freaking wait. Oh my gosh. I'm gonna be in England during Halloween. I don't think they celebrate Halloween. Do they celebrate Halloween? I don't know. But I'm excited for it to be actually rainy, because having lived in Texas and then California, it's like I haven't experienced a real autumn. Does England have autumn? I don't know. We'll see. But anyway, I'm rambling now. I hope that you're doing good. I really do. I'm already excited to see you in the next video. I'll be making more now that I'm back. So yes, I hope that you have a good day or a good night wherever you are, whatever you're up to. And I will see you soon.